Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you on our afternoon session, which is dedicated to the policies, legislation and measures for development and implementation of social farming. My name is Jan Baláš, and a short bio of myself. I was very deeply involved in developing the social economy in Slovakia, with also focus on social agriculture, so I'm very pleased that I can be part of this discussion, which will be focused on development of social agriculture, social farming, care farming, and with a special focus on this afternoon session on the countries with four Central European countries. I would like to start with four apologizes. First is for the technical reasons which we had in the morning, so we tried to solve it, and we hope we will have more smooth life transition during this hectic time of COVID. I would like to also my personal apology for misspelling any names, so I can see there is a lot of international communities and persons who are deeply involved in the topic. And also, it will be under personal apologies. I will be very strict with the time frame of the presentation. So, I would like to announce this. Basically, the concept is 20 minutes the presentation and 10 minutes the questions. And also, I would like to do the personal remark because I'm educated in public policy. So, as our first presenter is Margaret from the representative of OECD, and she will present the need of the public policy, the definition of the public policy frame and the concept, and also the need for the statistic in order to assess the public policy which are in place. And from my personal perspective, I know how important it is to define the right public policy in order not to take the public policy which is ill-defined in another perspective, and then it can miss its results or the goals which I think will be presented the perspective from the OECD representative. I would like to very warmly welcome you. Please, the floor is yours, Ms. Margaret Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Baláš. Thank you all. Mr. Chair, experts and participants, I'm going to share my window. Every time this is it. Every time technology works, it looks like a miracle. Let me know if anything doesn't work. Mr. Chair, experts and participants, this morning we heard from experts on the benefits of social inclusiveness and care farming. We heard inspiring, real-life examples, best practices and success stories. Most importantly, we heard from subject matter experts. So before I begin, it would only be fair to let you know that I am not an expert subject on the subject matter. In fact, I'm an economist by training and an agriculture policy analyst by profession. In a nutshell, my day-to-day job at the OECD is to use evidence to advise governments on the best use of public funds. And I will present the results of our analysis on agriculture policies and how it can inform the role of agriculture as an actor of social inclusiveness. You may wonder why it matters. It matters because agriculture policies are, in most countries, a massive instrument that has shaped rural areas and farmers' behaviors for many years. It matters because any initiative to strengthen the role of agriculture as an actor of social inclusion should take into account, or even better, be coherent and with and supported by agricultural policies. So the outline of my presentation today, I will first discuss the OECD method, that is evidence-based policy advice, what we know about agriculture policies today, why a holistic approach for better social inclusion is important, the need for evidence, and my conclusions. So first, what is the OECD? We are intergovernmental organizations with 38 member countries. We're 60 years old, and our membership is based on like-mindedness. What it means is that the governments ultimately have a same objective. Our governance is member-driven. Our audience is generally government officials, and we have 250 groups, working groups, where we work. My working group was mentioned this morning, is the Committee for Agriculture and its subsidiary bodies. We advise governments in support of sustainable economic growth and development worldwide. We support financial stability. We support governments in an endeavor to improve living standards and employment. And we have a trade openness objective too. The OECD method is evidence-based. We apply economic analysis, we use peer reviews, we use policy dialogue, and to develop our policy advice. And I think this is our strength. Our strength is that we are peer, the recommendations don't abruptly fall on members, they're peer developed, and it's really important. I think it is the strength of our method. Christina told you this morning about the CRP research program. So I hope you remember the date of applications. If you're interested, no later than September 2022. But my turn now to tell you about our work on agriculture and agriculture policies. We have two flagship publications. One looks at the market, one looks at policies. The one I work on works on policies, is work on policy. We publish annually, and there are many derived products from those. We also do thematic reports. Recent projects have included resilience and risk management, innovation system, human capital and skills. And we also connect the policies that connect, we also look at the policies that connect agriculture with the environment, with health, with trade. But there's more information available online if you would like to see. Our work on agriculture policies has been going on for 30 plus years. And I know it's scary, but I've been there all the 30 years. So it says something about my age. We apply a consistent approach over time, since 1986, and across countries. And that's where the evidence aspect is really important. We develop internationally comparable measurement of support. We update it annually, and we cover 54 countries. So it's two-thirds of global agriculture value add. What we have observed is that countries have shared policy objectives, generally around three groups. Objectives related to farmers that are generally connected to farm income, to allow predictability of income, and to allow the competitiveness of the sector. There's objectives related to consumers. Obviously, quality of food security are key. Variability of prices, and sometimes more recently, agriculture policies have also endeavored to contribute to energy security. Objectives related to societies at large are the preservation of cultural landscapes, have been on the radars for long, but the viability of rural areas, environment and biodiversity, and ecosystem services. You will see here that in our radar, for the moment, social farming, care farming isn't there. We haven't observed that there has been a massive shift of policy objectives towards this part of needs of the society at large. So that's something for us to consider. With these objectives in mind, they use a wide diversity of instruments. They use border protection. They have used border protection for years, and like import and export incentives and barriers and food standards. They do market intervention. They do input support. They do direct payments. These are those support instruments that are targeted towards farms, and then they have sector-wide services. These relate to infrastructures, R&D, education, and markets. In these objectives, we have seen that in these instruments, we have seen that the rural communities are more visible nowadays. And the mention this morning about mental health, this is also care that's it's on the radars of other governments. For example, the government of New Zealand, that generally doesn't support agriculture, has measures to support rural communities and the mental health of farmers. So we have observed the adaptation of policies and instruments to shifting objectives. What can we say about policies today? Agricultural policies support that we recently published our annual report. $720 billion are transferred to agriculture annually. Most is transferred through the most distorted forms of support, and only 17% are spent on general services. What it means that the longer-term, future-building investments receive less attention from governments and less budgets. 18% of gross farm receipts stem from public policy. So if there's any change to be brought, the farm income aspect must be taken into account. And the reforms that are needed relate to the general services and where the support to sustainable productivity growth happens. Education and investments are the key things. So the directions of reform. Countries should repurpose distortive support. Those are distortive. By distortive, we mean those that encourage directly output, and they should invest in no-regret policies and public goods, such as education and skills, innovation systems, strategic infrastructures. The risk management policies must be streamlined. By that we mean that rather than encouraging farmers to take up risk management policies, and insurance, for example, or diversification of income, sources of income, and at the same time give the farmers the certainty that if anything goes wrong, governments will intervene. Streamlining the government position is key in letting farmers take the proper decisions. And then improve the coherence across policy areas. I think this was mentioned by Chris this morning, especially when issues are at the crossroads between different policies. It is important to know that a whole of economy, whole of agriculture response is given. And what our analysis has also shown is that sometimes the role of government has crowds out private sector initiatives, and these should not happen. The role of government should be limited to where market failures occur and where the issues are beyond the capacity of the private sector. Marjorie this morning mentioned how the sector industry organized itself to develop a response and to be in capacity to strengthen its capacity to have a market-driven development. This is somewhere where governments can be present, can support nudge the change perhaps, but then let the private sector make the decisions and take the issues forward. The holistic of social inclusion was mentioned this morning by this, but perhaps there was less of a discussion of territorial policies. So in many countries, central government has its action at the economic sector, and then territorial units, the territorial governments, municipalities have a role in deciding where their policies would go, where support should go, and how they want to organize the territory. Social policies have policies, agricultural policies. This is where the care farming and social farming stands, and it's influenced by all these different aspects. The challenges were highlighted this morning. Attractiveness of urban areas means depopulation of rural areas. Access to public services is difficult in rural areas. Education, transport and health infrastructure are less opulent in rural areas generally. Access to private services, this is what Professor Kondo said, retail, social and cultural gathering, meeting places. All these are challenges that must be addressed. They can be addressed by territorial policies, for example. On-farm challenges were mentioned this morning by this. The costs associated to the paperwork, to the investment, to the compliance to regulation, the investment needs, the training needs, the care capacity needs. All these are challenges that must be addressed, but then this is where policies can help make a difference. The potential benefits include widen and strengthen rural communities, Thomas mentioned, to follow up with the presentation on Hamarasen. Farmers' mental health, for example, is one area where of concern in New Zealand also, where the answers were chosen to strengthen the communities. Diversification of employment opportunities and activities in rural areas. These are all areas why policies may want to pay attention. Francesco this morning also highlighted the connections and the needs. So the need for evidence, this was mentioned this morning. This morning we heard, I'm sure there's social farming in Slovakia, but we don't know how, we don't know as we don't have the data. It's true, but then the discussion also showed that we don't know what data would be relevant and what wouldn't be relevant, and how, which indicators to pick. Professor Kondo showed that, for example, I would never have thought of the bone mass as an indicator for the efficiency of social farming and care farming. So what we know is that what gets measured gets managed. That's the rule. The lessons from our past work are that, for example, with resilience, we just finished a project. Sometimes in countries where we did case studies, we didn't know the impact of drought. We know it occurs regularly, but we don't know how much it costs. When you put a price tag to an issue, both for the cost and for the benefit, then you have a better opportunities to prioritize your policies and the areas for attention. So research is needed. So you all have contributed to that, and I'm sure you will continue to do that, to identify the issues, to understand the trade-offs, because 1 cent spent somewhere isn't spent elsewhere. We're not sitting on an endless pot of money, and that means the trade-offs must be well understood. So the evidence what in our experience, evidence allows to assess the conditions, to benchmark progress, and to compare outcomes. But from my experience in the area of food waste, food loss and waste, you shouldn't wait to have the indicators before you take action. You can start taking action no matter, because the issues are important. And a wide array of indicators are available. What we know is, for example, on farm income, we know the income that results from policies. We have less information from household incomes. And the farm household is where the stability of the farm lays, because perhaps if you have a diversified sources of income, you can switch to in years of less farm income, you can switch to your other activities. And when Marjorie mentioned that they diversified the cares, the types of cares and the types of care receivers, it allows to stabilize income. Then it's the same with the farming. So if a farmer has other sources of income, then it also helps be more resilient and stabilize the farm income. As a conclusion, the different policy mixes that can be mobilized to strengthen the role of agriculture. You mentioned many of them, but what is important is to bear in mind that they must be tailored so as to obtain the best results. And the private sector initiative is a very important driver. A holistic approach, policy coherence is true in every occasion and opportunity, so bear those in mind, and evidence and data are needed to tailor the policy instruments to the needs, but also for the private sector decision making. If a farmer knows that this is a source of income that will help in the future, then the decision making on the production needs, if I may say, so if care is one of the production instruments and ingredients, then the decision making is strengthened. To conclude, my impression is that we are at the beginning of a transition from individual experiences to a social farming industry that would be an accessible and viable farming option. To scale up these experiences, policies must be harnessed, both to nudge the change and to offer an enabling environment. I will give you this.
Thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation, Ms. Zadek. I would like to also, my personal remarks from the presentation and me from the holistic approach the government needs to know what to do, and the statistics. I pretty very much like these references for the tailor-made policies. And at this moment, I would like to open the cycle of questions. So please, if you have a question, raise your virtual hands, and I will pass the floor to you. If it's like Slovak-speaking person, also I will translate the question to English language. Please, Ms. Evans.
Thank you for that. That was, I'm also a policy wonk. So I really appreciate what you're saying. This is the background I come to it. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about endogenous versus exogenous development in this vision, because so many of the things that you are saying, of course, are the provision of government, of top-down. How can that top-down support bottom-up development? Do you have any thoughts? Beyond just saying holistically, but in sort of practice. These people are, many of our colleagues are negotiating exactly that difficult journey right now.
Thank you. Well, I'm lucky because at the OECD we have a governance area of work too. And what we have learned from them and which we have applied in our analysis of resilience is precisely what you described. The bottom up is just as key. The government, in policy making, consultations, stakeholder participation, all these are key if you want your policy to be tailored and targeted to the right place and to be for the measures to be taken up. This morning we spoke a lot about the EU CAP. As you know, EU CAP, there are two pillars. One is compulsory, pillar 1 is accessible to all farmers, and then pillar 2 funds are you apply for a period of time. What is observed is that pillar 2 monies are spent less easily than pillar 1 monies because perhaps the programs are not tailored to the needs, or as you were mentioning, also the formalities to apply are way too complicated. But yes, of course, I think it's not just about agriculture and social farming. The way governments make policies should be based also on not just the funds available, but also on the stakeholder needs and feedback and input.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for answering this question. And I can see another gentleman raised his virtual hand. Mr. Van Elsen, please, the floor is yours. Mr. Van Elsen, you can raise your question.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. I saw on your slide that you are already supporting or having on your agenda the aspect of how to increase biodiversity, and I just wanted to underline that it's a high synergy from my point of view, having social activities on the farm and caring for biodiversity, because usually the obstacle on normal farms is that there are not enough helping hands, let's say, and especially social farms have a big opportunity to become active in that direction. And I think especially this interdisciplinary approach, let's say, it could be something that really could need some support.
I would just say that I agree with that, and we currently have a study going on labor and skill mismatch on farm, and one of the key, I mean, they made the headlines. The number of hands on farms is an issue of concern these days, and obviously, if this was clear from your presentation, and I will pass it on to colleagues who work on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you for answering that question. Only I'm waiting for the name for the presentation, but I can see there is like only one person who raised hand. So please, the floor is yours.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, as a public health practitioner and epidemiologist, so I'm so glad to hear that OECD want to support the social, farming that should revitalize the rural areas. And I'd like to ask about your opinion for how do you evaluate the current global trend in rural migration after the COVID-19 pandemic. In Japan, so many people live in Tokyo, likely they want to go to the rural area, especially they are actually rich, people, and they seek for more relaxed, atmosphere, but besides not reducing the salary, right? So this teleworking condition is quite a big opportunity to, revitalize rural areas. So I want to know how OECD is evaluating this kind of situation.
Thank you. I don't know of any real studies. Perhaps it's soon for us to have a study on that. But what you refer to is also something I observe in the Paris area. We're based in Paris, and the French, how would you say, the French property landscape has changed. People want to live with big urban areas. One issue, as you know, the OECD covers many different types of countries, and not all countries are densely populated. One issue that you observe in less densely populated countries is the access to broadband. So teleworking is not something that's accessible to all in all areas of their countries. But that's my top of the head. The French would say café du commerce. If we were sipping coffee, this is what I would have told you. But we probably will make analysis of that. I don't know that we have current analysis.
Yeah, thank you. So in that sense, I think the infrastructure for the online connections in rural areas, it must be quite important in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yes, it is, and it's not just for teleworking. As you know, the future of farming goes into digital, and the access to all those broadband and communications is really, really important, and that's why we have work on that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. This is just for your information, but we recently published a paper about the digital divide for older people in Japan and some Asian countries that showed huge gap between the poor people and the rich people and the urban area and the rural area about the internet access. And the health disparity happened due to the internet access disparities. So from now, after the COVID-19 era, so we need, the online connection should be the central agenda for the equity issue. Yeah, and the OECD should have very important, role about the, to solve that, issue.
Yeah, I know that colleagues are working on that, and I know we have done a lot of both in agriculture, but also in our science and technology teams. But we have recent work on digital, which because the flip side of the coin is, of course, that with digital goes regulations and property. Who's the owner of the data and things like that. So there's a lot of work and interesting topics. But I know that you mentioned the health diversity disparity is connected to the digital side. It's really important to know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Professor Kondo, for raising these interesting questions. I would like to ask you if there is one more question, we can use the time for this presentation slot. I have this kind of like golden rules if it's not in 3 seconds, so I would like to very kindly thank you, Miss.
If I may, we have several publications that we would like to share with you online. So I suppose the organizers can make that happen. Please.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Thank you very much, Ms. Zadek. Of course, people in audience and in person, they say thanks, and I believe they will use it. I would like to very kindly also welcome another speaker and presenter from Slovak University of Agriculture in Nitra, as the name says, from Slovak Republic, Miss Professor Magdalena Lacko-Bartošová, and she will present social farming in the Slovak Republic. I would like to welcome her, and the floor is yours.
Hello again, good afternoon. I am here again with is my presentations regarding the social farming in the Slovak Republic. I would like to share our experiences with social farming, but as I have already declared, in the Slovak Republic, the social farming is just in its initial stage. Therefore, my presentation, I would like to give information about our agricultural sector, then about social sector, and especially about the legislative sector in social sector for social farming. Then I would like to give two very different practical examples, and then to make conclusions. Agricultural land represents in the Slovak Republic roughly 50% of our total area, and we have about 2 million hectares of agricultural land. Out of that, about 1/4 of permanent grassland. Slovak Republic is a typical rural country. According to the classification, more than 90% of the country are represented by rural areas. We are talking in Slovakia that our agriculture has a dual structure. What does mean this dual structure? Maybe when I heard the risk this morning, maybe it is very similar. We have, regarding the structure of our agricultural holdings, ownership, there are more than 22,000 physical persons working in agriculture and more than 3,000 legal entities. That means that the physical persons, their share on agricultural entities is more than 85%, and legal entities something more than 12%. From physical person, there are registered, but also non-registered. But share in farming of the agricultural land is 20% for physical person and 80% for legal entities. And here, I hope that this will be possible, here you can see the average size of agricultural holdings of physical person, just 16 hectares, and average size of legal entities in agriculture. And here you can see also the differences between registered farmers and non-registered people, but with some share of agricultural land. And here the average size of cooperatives and other type of enterprises is something more than 1,000 hectares. There is something I am not able to switch. Máme tu nejakého technika? Neposúva sa mi to. Ale klikneme to, čiže zastaviť prezentáciu.
Sam Zbyško, pekný dobre, z toho nie asi aktívne okno.
Okay. Because we are a new member states, within the first pillar of common agricultural policy, we use single area payment scheme, and here we can see the total number of beneficiaries of the land from the first pillar of agricultural policy. There is something more than 18,000 of beneficiaries, and here we can see, according to the size interval of agricultural holding, how many farmers are in this size. That means less than 5 hectares, we have more than 7,000 farmers, from 5 to 10 hectares, more than 3,000, and so on. And entities with more than 1,000 hectares, we have more than 500 of these entities. When we put the question, where are our potential social farmers, I think that probably you will agree with me that there are somewhere here, in this size interval, because most of the commercial large-scale enterprises are more interested in profit and less interested in social affairs. But still, there is a lot of number of small farmers, also of registered person that can be interested potentially for social farming. Generally, 50% of these very large farms are specialized on crop production. There is a decline of animal production in the Slovakia because crop production is more profitable than animal production, and but farms specialized for plant production usually employ less people than farms with animal production. And only 0.4% of the farms are with vegetable production, and out of these farms, many physical registered persons. There is very low diversification of production of legal entities, and they don't have a lot of activities out of agricultural sector. Usually the activities are development of farm tourism, rural tourism, because this activity is also financed and was financed from rural development program, but generally the share of income for these non-agricultural activities is very low, it's under 1%. I would like to mention our organic sector. Our organic sector represents something more than 10% of agricultural land in agriculture. Maybe you know that, especially here in Slovakia, we have the largest organic farms within the European Union. The average size of our organic farm is more than 400 hectares. Then it's very unusual for organic sector. Altogether now we have roughly 850 operators, and out of that 560 is this agricultural land, and here we can see the share of these operators according to the farm size. The organic farmers with less than 10 hectares of the land, altogether 7%. And you see that 37% organic farms farm from 10 to 500 hectares, but we have also organic farmers with more than 2,000 hectares of the land. Therefore, this organic sector, again the question, where are our farmers with potential social farming activities? I also hope that they are somewhere here in this scale, where social farming can be attractive. Now some words about the social sector. Actually, in the past we can find the evidence of different activities now falling within the social farming. Even in the past we didn't talk about social farming, but also during socialist era and even before, there were therapeutic gardens and special schools for the children with particular needs, and so on. Till now, in the Slovak Republic, there is no official recognition of social farming as social farming, but we can say that in our territory we never done activities that can be called or under the umbrella of present social farming. I would like also to point out the necessity of international cooperation. We were also invited and cooperate within EU and the Visegrad 4 countries projects. Even today's conference is based on our former cooperation. Therefore, really, international cooperation is a base for getting experiences, for getting knowledge, and for improving the sector. What is our present regulatory framework in the social sector? In 2008 was adopted law number 448 on social services. This is one of the very important laws that is adopted in our territory, which creates a legislative regulation on social services, but also the financial aid, the supervision, the quality of social services, which is important as a framework for social work. This law actually determined the public and non-public and private providers of social services and the partnership. Also determine different type of institutions that we can call and are umbrella of social services according to the type. And in the law there are precisely determined activities for different type of institution. Some type of institution I will quickly name which they are. They should, according to the law, develop also professional activities. That means develop working skills and also education and integration support, working integration support. From a lot of type of institutions that are under this umbrella of this law, working skills are provided in integration centers, then shelters, home on a halfway. This is my translation, I don't know what is the right translation, domov na polceste. And then we have specialized centers for health disadvantaged people. And we can talk about the resocialization centers for addicted persons and therapeutic communities. They are built under these resocialization centers. Many times these centers use different type of agricultural activities as development of working skills for persons they need such a help. This law also provide qualification requirements, but for working skills. Now I'm talking only about working skills because this social farming and farming activities belongs to these working skills. That means that in these centers for development of working skills is required secondary education in particular field of study and plus accredited course of social work for minimum 150 hours. That means if some specialized center or shelter or home on halfway provide working skills in agriculture, they should have some person with this qualification requirements. But the problem in Slovakia is that we don't have any statistical data about what kind of social farming activities are provided, what kind of type of social working places are offered these working skills and different type of activities that we can put under the social farming. Then the second law and Act number 112 that was just adopted in 2018 is also very important for development of social economy because it is Act on social economy and social institutions or enterprises. I don't know what will be the right translation into the English. Actually, this law regulates the institution of social economy. There are social enterprises and institutions with social achievements or social impact. In Slovak language, so sociálnym dopadom. Then I'm talking about the social impact. But all these institutions must fulfill quite strict legal requirements. And when I read these legal requirements and start to think as our large-scale farmer, then I think that our large-scale farmers will not be so much interested to establish some institution according to this law. institution with social achievements, that is something different than social enterprise. They have the aim of minimum one economic activity with positive social influence. The main aim of the social institution is to achieve measurable positive social influence. And there can be institutions like civics association, foundation, non-profit organization, cooperatives, but also real physical persons. I think that in agriculture, maybe this second type of social institutions can be probably more attractive for the farmers to follow. According to this law, the social enterprise under certain and very strictly determined conditions also may receive financial support. When I look at the internet, I have found that in the Slovak Republic now we have more than 400 different social enterprises, but again we don't have any statistical data which social enterprises are doing activities that can be included into social farming. But I have found there are also some farms with these possibilities, and social enterprises are also established at a different level of our self-government institutions. I think that tomorrow there will be a discussion about this type of possibilities. And I would like also to mention the third possibility, and it is subsidies for employment of disadvantaged job seekers. For the farmers, this was a possibility that some farmers used this possibility because it was also granted by the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development. This is on the basis of Commission Regulation 651 from 2014, and the aid and subsidies were distributed and implemented by Agriculture Paying Agency. When I look at the recent statistics, that in 2018 there were through our paying agency distributed something more than 45,000 euro for employment of disadvantaged job seekers in agriculture for agricultural farms, and the total number of beneficiaries were 8. But in 2020, the expenditure was slightly higher for 115,000 euro, and number of beneficiaries were 20. Therefore, there are possibilities for building and development of social farming also in the Slovak Republic, but we have really more advertised, and the farmers should be more interested and should be more motivated for this type of business. Regarding the agriculture policy, we have possibilities from rural development program, and but there are also some funds through the implementation of social policy. Now I would like to give you some examples, very, very different examples of two, we can call it also like social farms. For agriculture, we surveyed several farms, and one example will be from this lowland region, South Slovakia, and one example is from eastern part of Slovakia under our High Tatras mountains. The first farm, I am sure that the people in the Slovak Republic know it very well. It is an association of entrepreneurs in agriculture, Cooperative Dvory na Žitavo. That is a typical commercial, large-scale farm. The farm totally farmed more than 5,000 hectares of the land. And the motivation of the farmer was direct selling from the yard. It was not a social farming, but the motivation was to create conditions for direct selling, for producing of regional products, for development of local economy, and to build a short food chain. That was the priority at the beginning. What he did actually, in Branovo is a small village where there were 5 farmyard which was not utilized, it was abandoned. Then the management of this farm established farmyard Branovo, but this farmyard is still without legal entity status. In 2012 it was opened for public, and because on farmyard Branovo there are something more than 8 hectares of the land, they focus on a very diversified plant and animal production with low input technologies, and their priorities were production of food products with very high nutrition value, with low input technologies, animal keeping with high ethical and welfare standards, and management wanted to support short food chain, local food production, and to strengthen the trust between producer and consumer through direct selling. But they also create some workplace for lower skilled persons, unemployed job seekers, but also a place for practice for the students, and also farmyard for just for children, for visitors. On the farmyard, 12 permanent employees are working, and in a certain period most of them were disadvantaged job seekers that were officially registered at the offices of labor, social affairs, and family. Then the purpose was local food production, short supply chain, low input crop and animal production, and so on, and very simple technologies. You can see this farmyard, it's really very, very nice, very tidy. The people here feel very well on the farmyard. There are open also possibilities for secondary school children to take the practice. And the farmyard is aimed also at milk and milk products processing. You see these small technologies and especially small animal keeping. And at the same time there is a small slaughtery, and they produce these regional meat products. They sell it directly to the persons 2 times per week. That means that this management of the farm, even this farmyard Branovo, is difficult to be self-sufficient. But because the farm is large enough, and that was the intention of the management, really to build these short food chains, to open their doors to the public and to produce regional food. And because of this possibility to employ disadvantaged people, they also use this possibility, and these people find the working possibilities at the farm. But to create attractive environment for the whole public and for the children is also one of the aim. Now we are on eastern part of Slovakia, where quite different. We can also talk about social farm is working, and it is Institute of Christ, the High Priest. It is a civic association, and that was established by church, by the priest Marian Kufa. And therefore the target groups and the aims, the motivation is quite different than the previous one. Actually, the main of this institute is a help for everybody who is in need, really for everybody. Therefore, there are a lot of target group. We can't talk only about one. There are disabled people, homeless people from the whole Slovak Republic, the people that are suffering from addiction, children from the disrupted families, and so on. Therefore, it is quite different. They are divided into different centers, because at this institution more than 200 people are living. They also they have I would like to, you can see some pictures. They farm 190 hectares of agricultural land. They have animal husbandry. They need or aim at self-sufficiency in animal products, in bakery products, in vegetable production, and use different sources of funding. Really, they need every money, every euro. Therefore, all the fundings can be found at their internet. Because they have a small bakery where people are working also the fields for vegetable production and so on. It seems that I talk too much. Then conclusions, I would like to tell these conclusions. Even in the Slovak Republic, social farming is in its initial stage, but we can say that this sector is currently growing. Even the social farming is not legally recognized. National regulatory framework of social farm programs as a social farm is still missing. All activities and development of activities really aimed at inclusion of disadvantaged and marginal people that are evident in practice and that are very differentiated form of activities both in Slovak Republic, public and private. What is missing is systematic statistics on providers, on social farming, on activities, on quality criteria. All these things are still missing. We don't have yet very well developed multidisciplinary research programs that are not implemented. The impact and the benefits of social farming on target groups and economy and so on are not analyzed. We don't have experiences, and also systematic dissemination is missing. We don't have yet accredited training programs. And therefore, I would like to encourage our government, our ministries to create strategies, to create a supporting environment, to involve civil society and cooperation between different policy areas at different levels, national, regional, local, that everything should be established. And I would like, again, encourage ministries that need to work more closely together and to remove barriers, obstacles, to remove a lot of administration and to provide sustainable access to funding. Minimum at the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development is in the future strategic plan to promote and support minimum the leader project from rural development programs that will be devoted to social farming. But there is also necessary to link different structural funds that are the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Labor, Social Affairs, Ministry of Rural Development. It would be the best if will be established a working group for this strategy development of social farming across minimum state ministries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Professor Bartošová. I would like to very quickly open the floor for the questions. I would like to ask the co-moderator if we do have any questions.
Pani Dobratková sa. Slovenska.
I guess pani Miss Balak-Lukanová.
Thank you very much for the contribution. And coming from the background of the Slovak social business that has attempted to start for the last year, I have two things to say. One is we do not have programs to support financially yet because the social businesses are excluded from the social business support on the grounds of common agricultural policy. And then, for example, Thomas mentioned the EIP program. There were several calls, but none was open for social businesses. And then the second one, and that's linked also to a question, is we have incredible amount of bureaucracy. And partly it's linked to the bureaucracy on the European levels, but combined with the Slovak culture, we kind of realized Franz Kafka's blueprint. And the ask is to research also the bureaucratic load that social businesses have and have them compare. As there is greatly said, this is not my quote of the day, that farmers are professionals in farming, not in bureaucracy. This is our real stopping moment. Also, what I can say from discussions with other social businesses, and I see that we do not have lack of farmers in the social area. We have really anti-environment for us to start. And therefore my big ask is to have some data really comparing bureaucracy across Europe, because we may not realize, but my feeling from living in different countries is that this is getting worse and eventually it may kill us. Okay, so that was my question. Thank you.
I am not able to answer this question, how many bureaucracy is in the other countries. But what was for me quite promoting what Mrs. Ellings told, that the farmers are working together, and I think that if some farmers are working together, they can overcome the bureaucracy probably better than if the farmer is just alone. But there is still a long way.
Thank you.
It's a long way. Mrs. Darling's lift her hands, I don't know.
Yeah, I do agree that if you are united, then I think some part of the bureaucracy you can efficiently do together. That's, I think, the experience in the Netherlands. But to also say something about the bureaucracy in the Netherlands, I think maybe it's not so as in Norway or in Slovakia, but also social workers here in the Netherlands and for instance, home doctors experience a lot of bureaucracy, because everything needs to be written down and the administration process is taking a very large part of their job. So that's also some complaints of the healthcare sector here in the Netherlands as well. So not that I can help you with that, but to share the same story here. So yeah.
Thank you for providing another perspective how the bureaucracy works across other country. I would like to also give a chance to a person who would like to raise his hand. And I can see Ms. Dobrodkova, she will raise her question. The floor is yours, and I believe she will be speaking in Slovak. So.
Ďakujem veľmi pekne za slovo. Ja by som mala otázku na pani profesorku. Zaprvé ďakujem za veľmi krásnu a rozsiahlu a naozaj hodnotnú prednášku. Na začiatku pani profesorka povedala, že na Slovensku sme úplne na začiatku toho procesu vytvárania tej politiky sociálneho poľnohospodárstva. A v nadväznosti na to sa chcem spýtať, čo pokladá pani profesorka za ten najdôležitejší dôvod, že sme stále ešte v roku 2021 na začiatku. A ak dovolíte ešte druhú otázku, svoju prednášku končila tým, že nevidí veľkú spoluprácu medzi ministerstvami, Ministerstvo práce, sociálnych vecí a rodiny a Ministerstvo poľnohospodárstva a rozvoja vidieka. Teda kto z týchto aktérov dvoch alebo niekto iný na Slovensku by mal byť tým lídrom v procese rozvoja sociálneho poľnohospodárstva. Ďakujem.
Ďakujem veľmi pekne za otázku. Thank you for your question, and I will try to translate it to English. At the beginning of the question was, at the beginning of the process of social agriculture, we are still it was raised up, Slovakia is still at the beginning of the process. And the question was very sharp. What and why in 2020 we are at the beginning of the process to introduce the social agriculture in Slovakia? That was one first question. The second question was, during the presentation was raised up, there is a problem between different ministries of social affairs and economic and development and rural areas ministry. So what is the status quo is the question, and who should lead the way? Which kind of actor, which kind of ministry should be responsible for developing the social agriculture concept within the Slovak Republic?
This is specific. I need to talk in Slovak. No, môj názor je, že my hovoríme o sociálnom poľnohospodárstve. Keď ja počúvam aj v rámci teda tej našej skupiny pre sociálne poľnohospodárstvo, ktorú vedie pán Kováč, tak väčšinou tam prídu pracovníci, ktorí sú možno nevládne organizácie, nejaký status majú, kde vždy tak počúvam, že chýba mi traktor, chýba mi toto. Čiže ja si osobne myslím, že by malo trochu viac otvoriť dvere ministerstvu pôdohospodárstva. Pretože koľkokrát práve tým ľuďom chýbajú veci, ktoré súvisia s investíciami do poľnohospodárskych činností. A tam, čo počúvam zase tie možnosti pre investície cez sociálne fondy sú v podstate nižšie ako cez poľnohospodárstvo. Čiže, ale je tu jednoznačne treba, aby spolupracovali. Napríklad, keď si zoberieme Českú republiku, tak tam sa nadchol pre tento koncept predchádzajúci minister poľnohospodárstva a vytvoril fond pre farmárov, ktorí robili sociálne poľnohospodárstvo a z tohto fondu mohli čerpať na tie investície. Zase aj program rozvoja vidieka zase nie je tak striktný, aby z neho mohli čerpať len poľnohospodári. Z neho môžu čerpať aj nepoľnohospodári. Zase je to len otázka tej výzvy. Európske inovačné partnerstvo tiež môže byť zamerané na sociálne poľnohospodárstvo, kde môžu spolupracovať viacerí aktéri. Treba to len dobre čítať a pozrieť sa na tie otázky. Neviem.
Áno. Pán Balaš, tak môžem.
I will try to paraphrase what was said. So, Mrs. Professor said there is in Slovakia a special working group on social agriculture. There are many actors. Also, there is with us the person who is leading the group. And the thing is, there are also coming like professionals to the group, but also like different actors through different variety of ministries. They are coming there, and these people are listening. And the professionals, they are sometimes asking for simple things, like vehicles to do the job for social agriculture. So, because we know in Slovakia there are lots of funds available, but somehow they cannot find the way how to find the finances for their needs. And also, Mrs. Professor, she said like in her point of view, that it should be like Ministry of Agriculture to lead the way. Who should be responsible to develop the concept, to adjust the available resources in accordance to the needs of the, let's say, social agricultural farmers. And one remark was also, like previous minister, he established I would like to apologize. Previous minister from the neighboring country, from the Czech Republic, this was an example. So he established the funds, which the grant scheme, which are available for social farming and social entrepreneurship who focused on social agriculture. So basically, it was a well-developed concept, a well-aimed concept, where the public policy met with the need of the social agriculture farmers. I would like to open the question cycle for one more and last question in this session, if there is any. The floor is yours.
I just would like to add that sustainable agriculture is based on 3 pillars. And the third pillar is the social pillar. We have also now in our present rural development program priority number 6, which means that also social aspects of agriculture should be taken into account. Poviem to teraz po slovensky. Pani Dorot povie, že my keď hovoríme o udržateľnom poľnohospodárstvo udržateľné má 3 piliere. Ekonomický, environmentálny, sociálny a aj súčasná poľnohospodárska politika je zameraná na plnenie aj sociálneho piliera. Čiže je to už otázka častokrát aj samotnej členskej krajiny, ako si nadstaví program rozvoja vidieka, ako bude rešpektovať sociálny vplyv poľnohospodárstva. Therefore, I just would like to add that it's many times on the particular member states of the European Union how the policy will be set, how the rural development program will be prepared, whether the social aspect will be really encouraged or as I see in our rural development program, mainly environmental aspects are encouraged, not so much the social pillar of the sustainable agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Professor, for your encouraging speech. I would like to proceed to the next presenter, which is from our neighboring country. I would like to welcome Mr. Professor Jan Moldrik from University of South Bohemia from the Czech Republic. And the presentation will be focused on current development and future perspective of social farming in the Czech Republic and Eastern Europe. I am much looking forward to listen to the presentation. The floor is yours, Mr. Professor. We would like to kindly ask you to turn on the microphone. Slyšíme vás len troška, we can hear you, but like there is a problem, the level of volume.
It's not.
Maybe you can, možno mikrofon si môžete dať trocha vyš.
Tak nevím, jestli je to teď slyšet, nebo stále ještě není.
Moc krát lepší, děkuji moc krát.
Dobré odpoledne, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the technical problems. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers for the, let's say, organization of this conference, because even these difficult COVID times, it's not easy to do these things, and I'm very glad that we were able to meet in this combined form. I would like to share my presentation, and I'm not sure if you can see the screen right now. It's visible or not?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. In my speech, I would like to talk shortly about the social farming, how it has developed in the Czech Republic, the current status, and how it probably will be developed in the future. I think the things which are happening in the Czech Republic are more or less similar, and the environment is more or less similar to the other Eastern European countries, especially to the Visegrad 4 countries, but we have this similar aspects of the other countries, as for example, Croatia, Romania, Slovenia, etc. As we said before, and as we heard many times today from in other presentations, the social farming is a concept which is new for us, but actually it's a traditional part of the agriculture. In the last maybe 100 years, the agriculture changed really a lot, and with the changes in the agriculture, also the externalities of agriculture and its functions changed, especially due to the intensification of the agriculture, which was caused partially by the population growth, or by the technological progress, or maybe even by the globalization of the agriculture market. The intensive farming started to be, in some cases, a little bit industrial, and this caused that some of the non-productive functions of the agriculture were slowed down, and sometimes they even disappear. And this happens partly also with some parts of the social function of the agriculture, especially in the countries of the post-Eastern Bloc, as the Czech Republic is. In our case, actually, we lost most of the local traditional family farms, and these farms were replaced by the big enterprises, agricultural large-scale farms. And this caused that the space for the social activities, which are very similar to the social farming, was actually destroyed, and we didn't have too much of these opportunities. And the social work, with the people who need some kind of the support, help, was moved to the health sector from the agriculture sector. But historically, the farm was always the place for the people with all different skills, and on the other hand, also all different disabilities or disadvantages. And this is the thing which we are trying to restore under the head of the social farming during the last 10 years in the Czech Republic. Of course, very valuable is for us the experience from the other European countries, and of course the concepts which already exist, like the green care concept. And in the current situation, we see the social farming as an opportunity for the smaller farmers, family farmers in the Czech Republic, and as a part of the diversification of their activities. We created also the definition of the social farming, but I think I don't need to read it here because it's based on the European Economic and Social Committee definition from the year 2012, so it's more or less very similar. But what I should mention here is that the social farming in our case also three basic pillars, which are the employment, education, and therapy. The activities of social farming in the Czech Republic started more intensively before 10 years, actually, with the May project. Of course, before there was a lot of farms involved in the activities which we count under the concept of the social farming, but we didn't call it social farming. In the 2011 and 2013, the project, European project MAE, focused on the multifunctional agriculture in Europe, was held by some organizations, and one of them was also one of the NGOs in the Czech Republic. They actually opened the question of the social farming, but then they bring this term, social farming, into the Czech Republic. Shortly after this project, we started with the preparatory activities, and thanks to the few really active stakeholders from the farming and from the academic sphere and also from other spheres, we were able to establish the expert commission And 1 year later, in 2015, we gained the commission on the official level on the Ministry of Agriculture. This commission is still working, and we have the commission for social farming there. One of the outputs of this commission was the gaining of the direct support for the social farming, as was mentioned before, which was successful, but on the other hand, not successful as we hoped. So there are still things to improve, and we also were able to integrate part of the social farming or the social activities into the rural development plan, even if not the main plan or the main part, but it is there. In the 2015, we also started with official web pages of social farming, which are still running. So if you want to know more about the social farming in the Czech Republic, most of the information you can find there. And for the Agency of Social Inclusion, which is part of the Czech government, we created a study of the actual situation of social farming in the Czech Republic. In the same year, in the 2015, we were able to introduce the official concept of the social farming based on the experiences from the other countries. From the 2016, we can see the growth of the social farming in the Czech Republic. The new actors are entering the sector. In the last year, we are glad that even the commercial activities are connected now with the social farming, not because we would like to support much the social farming, but it is kind of the proof that the social farming is developing, and it's a health sector who is able to attract also the normal, or not the normal, but let's say the commercial active actors for the whole market. Later, during 2017, we created a lot of methodological materials, and we also find out that for the improvement of the social farming, it is necessary to have the communication or stronger communication straight with the practice. So we established the Association of the Social Farming, which is a non-governmental organization connecting the social farms and the actors of the social farming in the Czech Republic. In the same year, also on the level of the regions, the thematic working group social farming was created, and this working group even strengthened the local approach and the communication with the local actors in the social farming. In 2017, we started also a few international projects focused on the development of the social farming, education in the social farming, and the experience transfer of the social farming. In the 2018, the Commission gained permission to continue in the work, so we were approved for the new functional period. And what was important in 2018, and it was one of the main outputs of the Commission, was that the de minimis support or de minimis aid was approved also for the agricultural activities, which was before 2018 impossible. So this was big help for the small-scale farmers, for the small farmers oriented on the social farming. In the 2018, we continued with the finalization of the supporting materials, methodologies, workshops, excursions, and international excursions. And in 2019, the Association of Social Farming also started a support project for the education and qualification of the members and the employees of the members of the association. In the 2019, we were successful also on the academic field, where we were able to implement social farming courses into the bachelor's study program agroecology on the University of Slovak and the Fakulta of Agriculture. Right now, we have 3 courses here in this study program: basics of social farming, entrepreneurship in the social farming, and the development of social farming. The original idea, which was in 2015 and 16, was to create a whole bachelor study program, but this was actually too soon. It was impossible, and still it is too difficult because the trend right now is to decrease the number of the study programs. In the last 3 years or last 2 years, we are focused strongly on the progress with, let's say, rules in the social farming. In the 2020, we supported the creation of a new opinion of the European Economic and Social Committee. It wasn't the opinion for the social farming, but it was the social farming was integrated as a part of the opinion integrated approach for the rural areas with particular emphasis on the vulnerable regions. So social farming is mentioned also there. And a lot of the people and speakers who are now present to this conference are very supportive to this step, and they helped us really a lot with this. Now we are working also on the better social farming definition, which is a key factor for the support and the subsidies for the social farming. And there are another open questions which are the labeling, certification, and the control in the social farming. Last year, this year, 2021, we created another analysis of the social farming in the regions. It was another out of the thematic working group in the regions. And in the spring, in the May, there was also beginning of the public exhibition social farming. It was in the National Agriculture Museum in the Prague, and if the numbers are correct, there were more than 5,000 visitors to this exhibition, so it was a good part of the dissemination. What is important for the social farming is that we are combining the bottom-up approach with the creation of some kind of the infrastructure which is connected also with the political sphere. So we have the Commission for the Social Farming and the Minister of Agriculture, which is actually in the contact with the Minister of Agriculture. We have the Association of the Social Farming, which is connected with the stakeholders, especially the farmers, and which is the, let's say, the roof organization for the social farming. This is actually important because when we are looking for the arguments, we have the tool for discussions and dialogue with the farmers, and we have the tool for formulate their needs and their demands and express them to the Commission, and the Commission is able to reformulate it in that way that we can send it straight to the responsible persons from the Minister of Agriculture or even to the Minister of Agriculture. We have also still the thematic working groups in the regions, so there is a plan for a new thematic group right now. And of course, a lot of local actors is starting to be interested, different local action groups, NGOs, municipalities, and also other stakeholders. The involved actors are actually very similar as in other countries, so it means farmers, registered social service providers, social workers, local action groups, etc. Here is no big difference against the other old traditional European countries or the Eastern European countries. But what is the difference is the playground for the social farming which we have here in the Czech Republic and also in other, let's say, Eastern Europe countries. As was already mentioned by Professor Bakushova and also before by other colleagues, the social farming is more or less suitable for the farms where we need to work with the hands and for the places where there is also some care about the social aspects of the agriculture. And what we can see here on these pictures is the typical intensive form of the agriculture, which is the dominant form of agriculture in the Czech Republic, but also in other Eastern European countries. And here there is almost no space for the social farming. On the other hand, there is still a lot of space. Maybe not in the terms of the agriculture area, because the large-scale intensive farms work in the case of the Czech Republic on more than 65% of the agricultural land. But if we are looking on the numbers of the enterprises, we can see that even in Czech Republic, most of the farm is smaller than 50 hectares, and you can count them as small-scale family farms. Similar numbers are in the Slovakia, where there is even much higher share of the really small family farms with age up to 5 hectares. And actually the Slovak have very similar numbers. It is the average of the European Union. Our numbers are relatively close to the Germany, where you can see that there's also more of the middle size and the large scale size farms. Anyway, for social farming in the Czech Republic, even if you try to realize it on these large scale farms, still the optimal space are the family farms, smaller farms. And the reason is also that for these smaller farms, the social farming means sometimes also the opportunity for sustainability. In the current situation, in the Czech Republic, we have around 100 subjects involved in the social farming. 40 of them are officially registered within the concept, and they are under the roof of the Association of the Social Farming. We are still growing, so we still have new members. And there's a lot of other subjects developing similar activities related to social farming, but they are not part of the concept. They don't want to be, or it's only a small part of the activities. It's important to mention that the minority of these subjects are originally the farmers. Most of the subjects stepping into the organic farm, to the social farming in the Czech Republic are the, let's say, social enterprises who added the agricultural activities to their usual activity. Only in the 30% of thereabout cases, there were originally the farms, and the social activities, the social farming is additional part. The focus is on, as I said before, therapy, employment, education. If we are looking on the size categories of the farms involved in the social farming in the Czech Republic, you can see that most of them is smaller than 50 hectares, with only a few farms with operating hundreds or one even in thousands of hectares. What is significant for the social farms is that they are usually combining the plant and animal production. Usually they are very close to the right agriculture practice. They do all the things which are in accordance with the sustainable ideas, the ideas of the sustainable agriculture. So the most common animals in the animal production on all farms are the sheep, the cattle, sometimes even the goats, a little bit less of the pigs, poultry, rabbits, horses. In the plant production, the most common activity is the vegetable and herbs growing, very often also the potatoes growing. Activities where you need a lot of the helping hands, a lot of the hand work. The most common target group in the Czech Republic are the long-term unemployed people, and together with the people with the mental health challenges and also with the people with the physical disabilities. These three target groups are usually represented on the farms. But there is also a relatively strong group of the people in the recovery from addiction, and of course we have also all the other target groups as people trying to go back to the society after the stay in jail, etc. Young people with no parents and similar. What is important target group, but we don't have definition tools for them right now, is the target groups of the elderly people. This sector or this part of the sector will grow in the whole Europe in the future, and we could get them on the route of the social farming, at least part of them who are interested in that specific farming. The typical activities for social farming are also the processing of the production. Most of the farms in the Czech Republic, we are talking about the agriculture at all, don't process their production. Most of the social farms process their production. This is a very valuable thing. And they are also very often involved in the non-production activities, including the landscape, farming, protection, maintenance, as Thomas and Elsa mentioned before. Because for these activities you need a lot of hands, and usually farmers don't have the time for this. And the social farming is one of the tools how to do it. There are different positive externalities which the social farming brings to the Czech countryside. In some cases, it helps to slow down the countryside down migration. It brings the opportunities for the employment of local people, not only the people, the clients of the social farming, but also other people in the countryside. It helps to strengthen the local economy and also to improve the quality of life, because the social farm is involved also in the activities, such as cultural activities. They are organizing different events and they are part of the local community. Very often these farms are also the open gates for the local people, and they are helping with the inclusion of the clients, and they are showing that even the ones of the social farming are involved in things. There are actually three main trends and topics which we have right now, which we are trying to solve. One of these trends for the future, and this will be important not only in the Czech Republic, was the question of the labeling, certification, and the control of the social farming. As Nigel mentioned, for example, in the Netherlands have some mark of the social farming, and we are thinking about something similar, because this is important to have some basic rules or some basic label for definition of the social farming. If we would like to talk about supports and subsidies for social farming, because we need to define a target group for this kind of support, and for example, the labeling could be helpful in this case. But right now we decided to postpone the activity, because most of the farmers actually don't care and they don't want to have the label, social farming product, and they don't want to have the certification, and usually they don't want to be controlled because it brings additional administration. On the other hand, people from the social sphere and the politicians, they strongly agree that we should have the control labeling and the certification of the social farming. So this question is still open. The farmers usually told us that the additional value of the products in the social farming is not from the or the economic additional value is very small for the social farming. The people can buy the products because the products are social for the social farming. The people are buying the products because they are local, organic, etc., but not because they are social. On the other hand, the labeling is important also for the, let's say, support of the farms. So we are now thinking about the certification of the farm instead of the products. Another trend, important trend,
Professor, I would like to very kindly ask you know what will be the next phrase.
I know, I exhausted the time. 3 minutes. Last 3 slides and I will be very fast. Another topic is employment, which is very fragile question, because the employment is a very strong pillar of the farming, social farming in the Republic, and in some countries this is perceived like something what probably is not very social, the typical employment. And maybe another important thing is the difference between the different streams under the roof of the social farming, and this is the subjects which are farms, they are focused stronger on the farming activities, and the subjects which are more social enterprises focused much more on the therapy. The question for the future is if we will be able to hold all of these streams under the one roof of the social farming. More information you can find here on the pages or on the pages of a lot of the projects which we did and which was partially mentioned here during the presentation of the other colleagues, and which probably will be present also by Fakulta, who will present probably also the outputs of the TRACE project. So sorry for the long presentation, it's done. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Personally, I did very like the presentation and the focus and emphasis on like what you are doing in the Czech Republic, bottom-up approach. And without hesitation, I would like to open the cycle of the questions. Please. Mr. Evans, the floor is yours.
But it won't take much, but I just had a thought, thank you, when Jan was speaking, and earlier too in the questions. And that is that social farming is also entrepreneurship. And are there not ministries of entrepreneurship and development who could be brought into this mix? And perhaps even maybe Ministry of Agriculture could be threatened with losing control over social farming by a much more entrepreneurial Ministry of Enterprise.
Yeah, that's right, actually. We have, and actually in our case, even the Ministry of the working labor and the social affairs is very strong actor in this. And actually, because they are responsible for the social entrepreneurship, originally they tried to be also the main ministry for the social agriculture and include the social agriculture as a part of the social entrepreneurship. This is a little bit tricky situation because on one hand it's okay, on the other hand the social entrepreneurship is strong in the Czech Republic and also in other European countries. And if the social farming became a part of the social entrepreneurship, it could simply happen that it will be just one short-term program for the social entrepreneurship and it will disappear after some period. That's the reason why we try to keep it a little bit outside of the Ministry of Agriculture.
I see, yes, okay, thanks.
Thank you very much for answering this question. Mr. Van Elsen, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jan, for that very interesting presentation. What came to my mind is that the development in East and West Germany is also quite different, you know, because there are 30 years of different history in between. And I think in East Germany it's quite also the way that I have the experience that social farming is kind of starting from the social sector quite strongly. There are very few farms really starting initiatives, but it's kind of the way that the social sector is going to invent farming new in a way. And I think it's a bit similar than what you told. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. I agree, and I have a similar feeling, and I think it will be for most of the Eastern European countries.
I would like to open the floor for the last question. One answer. Please, Miss Alice.
Yes, Jan, thank you for your interesting presentation. And I had a question about the quality mark you're trying to maybe implement in Czech Republic. Because are the farmers, you told me that the farmers are afraid of bureaucracy or the administrative burden, or are they afraid for something else, like something new or something maybe they are afraid if they can't reach the standards or something? Do you have any idea, or is it purely bureaucracy that they are afraid of?
Maybe not only the bureaucracy. Maybe I didn't mention most of the farmers in the Czech Republic who are the social farmers are at the same time the organic farmers, and they are controlled by so many organizations, and sometimes they are afraid that the controls could find something and this will bring the problem. So not only the administrative stuff, but also this controlling is not very welcome activity for them, especially when they see that the straight profit from the label of social farming product is minimal. Actually, there is almost no additional value in it. So we need to explain that maybe the need of this label or the mark, not for the product, but for the sector and for the creation of the targeted subsidies for the sector. But the question is the form, and we will into this for the further.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Professor, for a very inspiring presentation. from the neighboring country, and also next speaker is from another neighboring country, from Hungary. I would like to welcome Dr. Abol Kakuri from St. István University, and the name of the presentation and the topic is Potential of Social Farming in Agroecology. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Because now I share my screen.
Loud and clear. I confirm from this place.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation for the conference. I'm very happy, even though in person it would be much better, of course. And I know that this technical issues is not an easy process, so thank you really to organize, and especially that at least social farming is a topic of such a conference. And even I didn't mention in the title the potential of social farming in agroecology, but of course I would like to talk a little bit about the Hungarian current situation of social farming too. But I don't have a new task because I will repeat a lot of things and a lot of messages that I don't know how to go to the next slide. Okay, there is a next slide. Can you see my next slide?
Yes.
Okay. So because I will repeat Jan and what the others just said when you talk about the target group and difficulties and the opportunities as well. But I would like to approach the topic from two directions, and one of them is agroecology, and the other one is multifunctional agriculture, which is not very far from the topic of agroecology. Agroecology is based, of course, in principles, and still there is a problem about, there is a great debate concerning its definition, but there are already general statements that says that agroecology doesn't deal exclusively with the production, but also with the whole food supply chain, the whole system, and in addition to the health of the soil, plant or animals, it really deals with the human health and the human issues with its beneficial effects. Which is interesting also that it doesn't mean only science or practice at field level, how can we maintain biodiversity, for example, at farm level, or how we can use organic manure instead of the fertilizers, but it's also a movement that promotes local community and also promotes social farming. That's why I think agroecology is a great context for social farming. And here is the list of the 10 elements of agroecology that the FAO created based on joint recommendations of decision makers, NGO representatives, practitioners, farmers, researchers. And finally, they provided these 10 elements in order to provide a framework and kind of checking points for those who would like to make a great change in their practice and also in their management. And I would like to highlight two of these elements, even their name are quite, related to social farming. One of them is the human and the social values that agroecology promotes: fairness, inclusion, and justice. That's included in that element. Equal access to decent jobs, for example, and all together, which together contribute to the improving of livelihoods. And the other one is the circular and of course the solidarity economy, which is very related to social farming, and it really promotes the local producers and the local markets, the short food supply chain and social farming. And the other concept is the multifunctionality, or is I think already explained. I just copied two kind of definitions. One of them from the glossary of the statistical terms of the OECD, that multifunctionality or multifunctional agriculture are terms used to indicate generally that agriculture can produce various non-commodity outputs in addition to food. I think that's really related to social farming. And in addition to the production of agricultural products or let's say industrial raw materials, that also takes into account the environmental, social, cultural functions of agriculture, and we often call them non-productive functions. Jan already explained a little bit these functions or mentioned them. I don't want to list them all, but and of course it's an endless story because you can find a lot of non-production functions and activities that agriculture can do. But providing employment opportunities for disadvantaged people, for example, or providing an educational location at the same time, because we cannot separate these different activities. So one small farm, because it's a kind of the multifunctional agriculture is a kind of perspective future for small farms. So they can provide even an educational location for not only disadvantaged group, but also for students. And here is a small picture about horizontal and vertical system of agriculture. I just want to highlight here that sometimes organic farmers and organic farms are in the horizontal system of agriculture because the small farmers are not often could be viable compared to the big primary agricultural production enterprises. So focusing on non-productive activities could provide new sources of income for farmers and also can create added value for their products. Just as we could see when I listed some of these non-production functions, the range of activities is very, very diverse, and the functions can't have form simultaneously, so we cannot separate them. Why I'm telling this because Jan already said that organic farmers are social farmers at the same time, and we experience this as well in Hungary, that most of the social farms are organic producers. I found that very nice picture that describes and that illustrates how many opportunities there are for farms that do not want to make living exclusively from production. And in the illustration you can see the social agriculture, social farming too. I would say that there is a lot of opportunities, but at the same time we also can see that sometimes the success story depends on the marketing strategy or the management strategy of the farm, or even the fact that what kind of chosen sale channel the farmer uses or applies. So with this I would like to say that the successful management requires complex knowledge from the farmer. It's not an easy task at all. There's a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of tasks with this. Social farming, because sociális farming in Hungarian, and indeed that the strongest representation of the social dimension of multifunctional agriculture, just as I think the strongest representation of the social aspects of sustainability too. We call social farming the new agricultural model with beneficial social functions. But I must add that it's also true from the Czech Republic, and that's also true for Hungary, that there is no proper legally understandable definition for social farming, and that's why I think the whole progress of social farming is not an easy story. But if I would say the social functions of agriculture, the social farming is an innovative approach that brings together two concepts: multi-purpose farming and social services. So the social aspects, which can work together very well with agriculture. But I don't know who asked this question during the slot, but who is dealing with this question? The agriculture sector, or education, or whose charge of this story? It's always a very good and very difficult question. I would quickly just to tell that the social farm systems, how it works and why is it good, just in a nutshell, but it's also just a repetition. Because the social functions of agriculture have great effect not only or directly in the affected people, namely the target group members or the disadvantaged people, but also the actors, namely farmers, project initiators, and if we just follow the flow, we can see that it has a great effect on rural development. And just as we heard the story in Japan, that what kind of measurement they can use, I think it's a very, very interesting issue. Just in a nutshell, the social farm movement in Hungary, how social farm movement started and where we are right now. Everything started after 2000. In 2003, when the government program was initiated by the Ministry of Employment and Labour, in order to support the establishment of autistic farms, we call them autistic members in Hungary. And as a result, 15 farms were created with autism-specific services and employment programs. It was a great initiative for the target group and for their family, for the family members. But unfortunately, when the money diminished, unfortunately, no new members were established. I think it's the same situation in other countries too, when there is no repeated money in order to establish or in order to maintain such initiatives. Unfortunately, it's not always a happy end. And at the same time, from 2003, let's say until 2015, a lot of different social farm initiatives were established or were launched with various target groups. Community farm development programs, especially specialized for Roma people. There was a lot of programs. I would say that they were not so long programs, so 1 or 2 years, and we cannot really get stable results if the program lasts only 1 or 2 years. And finally, there is no how could I say, there is no after program to follow what's going on after the project. But there was another issue: pharmacology programs specialized for school children, and animal-assisted therapy programs started, and of course social gardening for disabled people. It was already true in that time, but still it's true that the most important problem is that social farms are not legally recognized in Hungary. And nevertheless, a serious study in 2015 described in detail the operating principles, objectives, the target audience, the beneficial effects of social farming. It was a very good proposal, and I would say that was the first written material concerning social farming in Hungary. As a result, and because it was a good start, in 2016 the Alliance of Social Farms was established, and the social farm working group started to work in order to prepare a kind of policy proposal to address problematical issues. And in that was just a kind of continuation. When in the policy proposal for the establishment and operation of social farms in Hungary, they described what kind of problem we struggle and what should we do, for example, with the land loan in Hungary, in order to boost the establishment of social farms. Right now in Hungary there are around 40 social farms within the Alliance of Social Farms, but of course there are independent small farms that we don't know what they do because there is no any statistical data about them. So if I would make a short resume about the weaknesses, just as I described them, there is a lack of comprehensive strategy. Still, in Hungary, we have a lot of administrative barriers, of course. We are very, very good in administration to make a lot of barrier. And which is interesting from my perspective is a lot of training or the training curriculum. And that's why in international projects we are trying to work on curriculum and trainings because what I experienced at the university, that I am already very happy if I can meet a student who knows what social farming is. They don't have an idea about it at all. And it's another question if they have ever visited a social farm. So that's why we are not just working during courses to teach them, but also, and I will show you an example what kind of farm we operate. Then we try to integrate students with the disadvantaged target group. Also, there are a lot of opportunities in Hungary, but I would say that there is kind of connection with administrative barriers. I would highlight one program that was a rural development program, and social farmers were supported similarly to the what's the name, the AMAC in French, the Community Supported Agriculture. That was another part of this development program. But it wasn't very successful, I would say, because of the lack of information about social farming, and this program was quite complicated to successfully meet all the requirements. But we have strength, of course, just as I said, that we have already an alliance of social farms, and we have very nice practices and promising initiatives in Hungary, and we can learn, of course, a lot of new things from other countries. And here in the table that you can see that I made some differentiation between rehabilitation farm, care farm, social farm, and I think that table can be interesting because there was a question about who is the initiator, farm or a social institute? Because in Hungary, I would say that almost all the time the social institute, the care institute who initiate social farming and not the farmers, because there is no such a subsidy scheme to promote social farming. That's why the social institutes who recognize the importance of the agricultural activity for the target group initiate social farming programs. So here, if you can see that there are the different places of activities, social institute of farms, but also there are different target groups related to the place of the activities and the goal of the activities. The rehabilitation farm is the first one, and in this type of farm, disadvantaged people with special needs are actively involved in the farm work, and already the inspiring environment itself is a part of their rehabilitation. So here it's not the production, but more the rehabilitation that has a strong aspect. The target group in this case can be the intellectually disabled people, people with mental disability or physical disabilities, even psychiatric patient, elderly, addicts, and the rehabilitation farm includes social, health, and other institutions that organize these agricultural activities themselves. And after, they can use the good quality products in their own kitchen, so they are not really selling their produce. The care farm, the main picture of the care farms in Hungary is that in the case of the involved target group, I would say the socialization for the value-creating work, that's the aspect that appears more strongly. To gain real work experiences, because that helps them to take care of themselves and after to go to the primary labor market. But here the place of activity is the farm. And finally, the social farm, it can be misleading because we call them in Hungary rehabilitation farm, care farm, social farm, but in the Hungarian language there are two words for social farm, for the social. But when we say social farm, the target group can be quite specific. It's a predefined group. For example, young people within the care system. I don't know if that's the right or the correct English phrase for that. Or the refugees, people in deep poverty, and an attitude-shaping knowledge transfer takes place in this kind of farms. Here, disadvantaged and other target groups are involved for whom activity and the location of the activity is very important. So it's not a social institute, but again the farms. Of course, the three types of these farms that I just listed here cannot be categorically separated. Their identification with a social farm is not relevant at this moment in Hungary because there is no specific financial scheme just to support social farms or care farms or rehabilitation farms. But the experience shows that the social activity of a farm starts only with one specific target group and then when bordering this target group, the scope of the farm's activities become more colorful. But of course, there are specific farms. I guess I can hear my voice echoing. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you. We will just check like someone turn on this mic.
There is some. Now is it okay?
Yes.
Can I continue?
Yes, please. Just like please consider the time constraint like in 1 minute or.
Oh, in 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah, please. Take your time.
Oh. So quickly, I just go to summarize the problematical point in Hungary. The legislative definition of social farming is missing. Social service provided by social farming is not yet recognized, and the small producers community of rehabilitation farms, and that's important because just as I said, that the rehabilitation farms are those who are doing social farming, and of course, as a legal entity, they are not yet recognized. And the land use of rehabilitation farm communities is not yet defined because they are not farmers. Okay, probably I'm not going to talk about that project. We were not involved, actually. Hungary was not involved in this project. I think Thomas already and Jan already mentioned it. I just want to just say, even we were not involved, when we consider this different status category, Hungary would be in a pioneer status, which means that we have a lot of initiatives, good examples, but we do not have this official recognized status, just as Norway has, as we heard during the presentation of these. Who are involved directly? It's almost the same picture as Jan showed. I just want to highlight the role of the educators, and that's why I would also mention the Untitled Project. We were very happy to be a partner of that project. And I'm just copied here. Yeah, you can find here also the website. And I think it's very interesting for those who are interested in teaching materials and a lot of interesting information about social farming, because it doesn't contain only quality standards of teaching social farming, but also gives you an idea in an abstract book that what kind of units you need to teach if you want to teach social farming. And also you find full chapters, elaborated full chapters. So if you have an idea of what to teach after, you can elaborate your own chapter following that already given full chapter. Here is the link for the website. And another one, quickly, the Radicalist Project. We initiated another project specialized for social workers and the practitioners, agriculture, farmers. And there was two important things. It was a vocational training. We transferred a very interesting educational method, the PST method from the UK, which means we need always to explore how handicrafts can promote cognitive, emotional, and social development, even when we give some agricultural work to our target group. And the other aspect is the spirit of place, because it says that understanding the history and social characteristic of a region is fundamental to implement any initiatives. It's also true for social farming. If you're interested in more literature about social farming, in the Louvre platform you can find also, because we collected not only in English, but also you can find something, for example, in Italian and in Czech language. And the last project that I want to talk about is the TRACE project. It's an agroecological vocational training project for farmers. It's also an international project. What I want to highlight here, just as I in the very beginning said that agroecology includes social aspects too. Here, when we try to focus on agriculture and not only organic farmers but conventional farmers too, we would like to teach them. And here you can see the modules within the training. Some techniques, for example, agroecology in action includes market gardening, grassland management, and arable land management. But also, we would like to teach them how to make their farm sustainable in a long run, and also we focus on social benefits. I think within agroecology it's very important that farmers should learn about social farming, not only on production. And these are the nicest pictures because I just want to quickly, if I give you 2 minutes, I just show you three farms. The first one is Care Farm Tonio, and when the initiators of that farm organized a summer camp for children, and there was a little girl with learning difficulties, they realized how strong can be the integrative power of agricultural work. So after that, they initiated this social farm. They have animals, they have forests, and they teach them how to be ready for their daily routine life. So not only agriculture, but of course a lot of other extra what they learn. Another example is Nitra, with a very specific target group, Roma people. The Philadelphia Lutheran Church enthusiastic volunteers started the program, and in parallel they started a specific program for Roma small children, which is a Safe Start Children House, that's called. And when the Hungarian land program started, they started agriculture activities. They have a market garden, they have some arable land, they have fruits, and 23 Roma people started to work there. And actually, just a very small part is not under organic farm management, but the others are instructed and certified organic. Which is interesting here. Their aim was to teach Roma people about the community work, how to share the work, be responsible, and how to save some money. And during all this process, even the families, because they always can eat organic products, they became healthier, and also they learned how to do some organic farming. So it was there was practical aspects. And my last 2 slides about our agricultural garden, which can be found at Gödöllő and the university place, University of Agriculture and Life Sciences of Gödöllő. That was our former name was the Szent István University. The agricultural garden serves as a model garden for students, for Hungarian and for international students. Here they learn about environmental and ecological concepts and principles of organic farming. They organize events, they organize a lot of festivals like harvest festivals. But the main aim not only to teach them, but also to meet with the target group, because the garden also employs disadvantaged people. Here you can see in the top pictures, they are not children, they are adults, just they have some physical issues and some mental issues too, but they're very happy to work here, and which is very good thing. I believe that the garden sells their organic products every Wednesday in the garden. So those who would like to buy organic produce come to the garden. Can be university employees, citizens from the town, students, and nicely they meet. The integration happens because they meet from time to time with the target group who works in the garden, and which is important. They have meaningful activities, and you can see the tangible results of their work. And the last picture, because I just said that this is in the territory, the area of the university. The other function of agroecological garden is a community building, which can be achieved through practice and regular knowledge transfer. So students can celebrate together harvest or some other important dates, but also they learn how to share the work, how to build the community, and I think that's the most important thing. And that's why we say that in an agroecological garden, when not only the production, but also the integration with social elements of agroecology realized, we think that that's the future. And for the last slide, I want to say why the garden got the name SZIA, because in Hungarian hello is SZIA. So if an international student arrives, that's the first word they learn, SZIA, which also means welcome. So it's an open garden, everybody can come, and also because of the older name of the university was Central University, somehow we respect the past, but of course we are always looking for the future. So that's why we have the name Sierra Garden. And thank you for your attention. I'm very sorry if I was a bit too long, but there are a lot of things to say.
No problem at all. We would like to also thank you for a very interesting presentation, and also I found it very interesting from my point of view how you divide social care and rehabilitation, care farm and social farm. And also I can see like the parallel with Slovak Republic, there is no definition of the social agriculture, if I may say. And without another hesitation, I would like to open the floor for the questions, please.
Everybody's tired.
May I have a question?
There is one question from audience here.
May I have one?
Ladies, she's coming. Yes, please.
Okay. I can be both online or together with Mr. Balaš. My let's say note is only to the what you mentioned curricula you are working on and your projects which are connected to the, let's say, teaching of social agriculture. We in our university teach some subjects, some courses within three faculties, let's say. So that Professor Lacko-Bartošová within her faculty, which is from the side of sustainable agriculture, Professor Moravčíková, who is sociologist from the point of rural sociology, and myself from the I'm member of the Department of Regional Studies and Rural Development from the point of view of regional studies and rural development, so that hopefully we can cooperate, because it's really interesting to hear that you are a member of such projects, and hopefully, because we are really, let's say, we don't have a course which is called social agriculture, but within our courses we have the topic yet. So hopefully we can cooperate if you agree. And
yes, agree. Interesting. Magdalena have all my information, because we were in the V4 project, and when we started to cooperate, and we tried to map out the situation in Slovakia also, and also in Hungary.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but of course with pleasure.
If I may be personal, I can see and have feeling some of the tangible results. And also from your presentation, Dr. Uy, I did understand that there is a lack of information and a lack of awareness about around the students and around the general public, as also in Slovakia, as was pointed out, we are at the beginnings. So thank you, Ms. Hranekova, for
question.
And also
I can see there is, I do remember Miss Evans, because I cannot see the name.
Yes, that's right. I have a question for you. I was wondering, do the social services in Bulgaria get paid for the care they are providing clients?
Can you just repeat?
Do the social services get paid for the help they give clients? Do they have budgets for it?
Yes, but it's very, very low, unfortunately, very low. I can see that those who come for our trainings, those persons who are really interested in and who are very enthusiastic and they want to learn something. But not because that will mean an extra. Of course they are paid, but it's very low. Unfortunately, it's a big problem, I think, in general in Hungary, that social workers, social service providers are not well paid.
And the healthcare institutions, do they get paid for the help they give clients?
No.
So you don't. So the government or the health Ministry of Healthcare don't give any budgets to healthcare institutions.
Just of course they do, but not especially for agriculture activities.
No, okay, no, but they get the budget for the clients in their institutions.
Yes.
So why isn't it possible to reallocate that budget? Because that's what happened in our country. That at some point with the liberalization of the healthcare sector, there was other people like other small-scale care institutions like care parks could also have that accreditation, so they could also have a contract and get budget to help people. So
I don't know, because there was a lot of meetings and a lot of ministry representatives came from the agricultural part, from the other ministries, and they all agreed. But after nothing happens. It's like there is like no real owner of the social farming. The ministry is just showing to the other ministry showing to the other ministry, and somehow I guess that's the problem. And just those initiatives can be viable who are really when there is a very good manager on the top who can fight for the money, who can write projects. But it doesn't, it's not like that you apply it and you get it because you're a social farmer. You really need to work hard to get any support.
Okay, yeah. So in Hungary there are no such kind of small-scale care institutions.
No.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
But now, why social institutes started to be very interested in social farming? Because in Europe, I don't know the English name of that one. You need to establish small homes for disadvantaged people instead of having a big building, and so that's why they are searching for meaningful activities for their clients. So probably it's something to start because they are forced to do something, and that's why I believe that the financial system will change too.
Yeah. Okay. So that's called decentralization, I think.
Decentralization, yes.
Yeah. So, but I think the farmers need to watch out that they are, I don't know how to translate that. That they are used by bigger institutions, or Yeah.
We organize focus groups for farmers, and even those who are really sensitive for the topic, they said, okay, maybe in the future, because I'm so full of work and full of administration that I do not want to have more.
Yeah. Okay, but it's a start. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a start.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to Dr. Uri and wish her very good luck with developing the concept and with the raised hand for the cooperation from our audience. And I would like to introduce another neighboring country from Poland. I would like to introduce Dr. Violet Knapik from University of Agriculture, Krakow. From Poland, and I would like to apologize because I have created a program and there was a small change before I started. So I would like to very welcome and introduce Danka Moravčíková, Associate Professor Danka Moravčíková from Slovak University of Agriculture in Nitra, from Slovak Republic, and the topic is social innovation challenges in sustainable agriculture and food systems.
Okay, so thank you very much for giving me the floor. I need a little. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay, so let me firstly introduce myself, but my colleague did it a few minutes ago. My name is Danka Moravčíková, and I am Associate Professor at the Institute of Marketing, Trade and Social Studies at the Faculty of Economics and Management of the Slovak University of Agriculture in Nitra. I am not an economist. As it was mentioned, I am a social scientist working in the field of applied rural sociology, sociology of agriculture, and food. And my presentation, therefore, will be maybe a little bit more philosophical than empirical, because the role of social scientists and social sciences is deeply to understand new or not well-known or emerging social phenomena, to describe some elements, structure, dimensions, and to describe some factors influencing its existence, and so on, and to bring qualitative knowledge. And based on this knowledge, is then possible to propose also measurable indicators and statistical indicators which could help to analyze such phenomena more in a quantitative way. My presentation, I have divided my presentation, as you see on the slide, into three parts. In the first part, I would like to provide you with overview of contextual aspects of shaping agriculture and agri-food innovations at the end of 20th and at the beginning of 21st century. And based on this, then I will skip to explaining you how social sciences, contemporary social sciences, are discussing social innovation concepts, including social farming, and how they are viewing on this issue. And the last part of my presentation will be focused on the way how social sciences understand social innovations in agri-food systems. I will try to give you an overview of some examples existing in Europe and in the world, and also methodological insights how these social innovations are studied. Okay, so we all know that environmental ecological problems pose a major economic and societal challenge. Evidently, we do not have the environmental problem in the singular, but there is a plurality of relatively different problems. You can see them on the slides. Some are concerned with shortages of valuable natural resources. Other problems have to do with some limitations of the waste capacity of local environments or the entire planet. What is also important to maybe underline that also ecological problems currently belong to the standard repertoire and corset of political issues in all European countries. There is a permanent tendency that seemingly more urgent problems sideline the interest in ecological risk. Most politicians and citizens feel and know that environmental issues dramatically endanger our future, but their demanding day-to-day activities introduce or induce them to put these unpleasant facts in the background. You see here some examples of the local problems which are very often existing, and also very well-known global problems which humans world is facing in this period. When speaking about problems, we have also to speak about how to solve them, and I cannot in this moment skip my favorite quote of Albert Einstein, which you can see also here on the slide, and which, from my point of view, fits perfectly also to issues which I'm discussing during our conference. Who are main actors and activities which can participate in solving these problems? Also, there are considerable differences concerning the diagnosis and explanation of ecological problems. Most European countries have taken steps to protect their local environment and also to contribute to the reduction of global risks. Within this framework, relevant actors and their activities can be differentiated into these four categories. So, environmental behavior of individual citizens and inhabitants, environmental engagement of business corporations, endeavors of environmental movement organizations, and also governmental agencies enacting specific environmental policies. While some authors suggest that the globalization of human societies leads to a standardization of behaviors and forms of production and exchange, the examination of the characteristics specific to agriculture and agri-food activities suggests instead the continuance, even the renewal, of the original features that are likely to mark innovations in these sectors. The first specific feature is dedicated to a very special relationship of agri-food sector with the living world and nature. The second one is the relationship with the space in which these activities and all other related actions take place. And the third dimension, third original feature is the relationship between human beings in society. This third relationship makes food production and supply a social act that involves the relationships and norms that structure the life of human communities. The relationship with others is the basis for food norms, for example, cultural, religious, ethical, administrative, and so on, that permit, that can also prohibit or favor certain agricultural products or techniques. Food retains a special place, especially because it can be shared. On a global scale, cultural food differences remain significant. They retain an identity value for many, many communities. Some concepts were mentioned today during the morning session as well as during this afternoon session, so maybe this is only summing up of some of them which were mentioned. So key concepts which frame or shape innovation in contemporary period are dedicated or are based on different forms and intensity of agricultural productivity, different models of agricultural production, for example, conventional, small-scale, extensive versus intensive, and so on. Also questions of food security. There are discussions about food safety or food quality, what we should prefer. Then there are huge inequities in a global agricultural trade, especially between countries of global north and global south. And also questions of natural resources and biodiversity depletion, soil erosion and degradation, agriculture-related pollution, and so on. And what I will speak about later on, food production alternatives which are non-industrial. Key challenges related to these key concepts usually refer to food security challenges, for example, waste, food waste or waste from food industry, challenges of demanding dietary needs of population or new forms or new types of food, for example, functional food, also pressures on food prices and so on. Then there is a tendency also to shift or to change organization of the agricultural sector. The tendency is to shift roles and governance from public to private. Role of firms in government also has to be a little bit changed. And there is a lot of other challenges which are somehow interconnected with these tendencies. And last but not least, external challenges which were mentioned and which are very well known: agricultural land degradation, water scarcity, increase in pollution, climate change, energy market impacts on agriculture, rethinking agriculture's role in the ecosystem and necessary multifunctionality, what was mentioned also today. Actors were also discussed today, so this is also something like summing up slide of different categories of actors, because agriculture and agri-food activities are undertaken by specific configurations of actors and organizations that influence innovation in these sectors. This configuration of actors varies from country to country, so you can see here the list of possible stakeholders and actors which can participate in the processes of realizing and implementing innovations in agri-food systems. These actors act and innovate within the framework of particular institutions. Agricultural and food policies are these frameworks' formal expression, supporting, orienting and framing innovation at the regional, national or international level directly, for example, through the support for research and innovation, or indirectly through investments, regulations, prices, trainings and so on. In Europe, common agricultural policy reflects this institutionalization of support for innovation. The historical and joint construction of networks of actors, institutions and knowledges ensures the regulation of agriculture and agri-food activities and helps provide a framework for the innovations that transform them, while maintaining sectoral and national specificities. Concepts such also well known and also today mentioned agriculture innovation systems or agricultural knowledge and innovation systems. What I would like to say about Slovakia in this relation is that we are in the process of establishing new agricultural knowledge and innovation system. Just now there are discussions about its shape, form and model, and three main pillars are identified within this new proposal of AGASI model. The first pillar is education, training and information. Second pillar is dedicated to advisory services, and the third is dedicated to European Innovation Partnership operational groups at national level. As usual, we have a delay in Slovakia, what was always mentioned here more times, because the first call for proposing detailed content of operational EIP groups was announced at the end of 2020, and approximately more than 50 proposals were submitted, I think 54, and what is something interesting also maybe for my colleagues, in 20 of them our university is involved or participating. But the second round of this call, which will be aimed at establishing approved proposals, is planned in December 2021. So, if I speak about innovations in agriculture and agri-food sector, there are several types of innovation. Today we saw and hear about a lot of them from the field of agroecological interest or agroecological sciences. We heard about territorial innovations, urban linkages and other things, and the third category is social category of social innovations, and I will skip to this category, to the second part of my presentation. And I also would like to introduce you two quotes which are very often promoted during innovation workshops for people who would like to run their own businesses. They see from the first point of view as different, but if you will think about them, they are complementary to each other, because if we think about social farming and social entrepreneurship as about entrepreneurial activities, we should take into account both of them. Okay? So here are categories of social innovations, how they are understood in social sciences, because the concept of social innovation lacks a unifying paradigm in social sciences, and the most general way of dividing the social innovation is to categorize them into these groups based on their nature. I do not have time enough, so I will skip some slides. I have chosen two contemporary approaches to defining of social innovation. So I will not read them, but existing social innovation definitions in social sciences exhibit more unifying elements than dividing ones. Usually innovations comprise changes to social relationships, systems or structures, and these changes set out to achieve a human need or solve a social problem. What is important from the point of view of modern social sciences is the new concept which is used, and it's the concept of transformative social innovation, and which was formulated and defined in order to further reduce the boundaries of social innovation. So several scholars have introduced this concept. Transformative social innovation is understood as the process of challenging, altering, or replacing dominant institutions in a specific social material context. Three different ways how to also differ or distinguish social innovation in the food and agriculture sector. We have to say that all these three models which you can see on the slide, so public tool or tool of public policies, then social entrepreneurship and some local initiatives, all three models of social innovation exist in the food and agriculture sector. I will skip this slide and I will go to the last part of my presentation, where I would like to show you which forms of transformative social alternatives to conventional agri-food systems are analyzed, studied, and somehow described in social sciences studies and researches. So the first category is the category of alternative food networks. So food hubs or solidarity purchasing groups, different types of cooperatives, including social cooperatives, community-supported agriculture, self-harvest gardens, community gardens, or eco-villages. Then the specific form or alternative is social agriculture or social farming, but social scientists study also slow food movement and specific sustainable livelihood approaches. Alternative food networks are centrally located facilities with a business management structure, facilitating few types of activities like aggregation, storage, processing, distribution, and marketing of locally or regionally produced food products. The question is how they can be economically viable and successful in working for social and environmental goals. There are few reasons which are based on existing findings of social sciences researches or surveys. scaling up seems to work better than scaling down. When scaling up, it is important to make sure those alternative goals are not sacrificed. Third reason is that incremental change or innovation has its benefits. And the last, grassroots passion is an important fuel and can make the difference between a successful and defunct alternative food network. Today's conference is aimed at social farming, so as you see what was described here today and characterized here today, 4 categories of social farming according to various target groups. In general, we can distinguish, it depends really on local, regional, and national circumstances. All these social farming initiatives differ according to target groups, objectives, and length of the stay, the offer, clients, financial aspects, and so on and so on. You can see it also here on the slide, and I will skip to last slides. Here, I would like to show you how social sciences are viewing and analyzing social innovation in order to investigate its drivers and to understand the social innovation process. So it is very necessary to shed light on the participating individuals, their values, practices, and behaviors. And beyond this individual perspective, an investigation into the different kinds of relations that influence the outcome of transformative social innovation processes is also required. To fully comprehend the transformative potential of alternative initiatives, the relations with the initiative, the relations with broader networks, and the relations with institutions and the broader socio-material context all have to be taken into account. In contemporary social sciences theory, these main drivers and related sub-drivers were identified for analyzing social innovations, including alternative food networks and social agriculture. So crisis, not only COVID crisis, but also crisis in general, reframing perspectives, engaging stakeholders, social entrepreneurship, and institutional support. So maybe this is also the proposal how to study existing initiatives in both socialist countries. Social agriculture drivers, according existing knowledge, scientific knowledge in social sciences, is also summed up at this slide. The farm should be understood as a traditional place where social activities have been provided due to the generational tradition or taking care of old people or people with special needs. It is also a very important role of women farmers who have attained social education in the field of care, education or social assistance and want to offer their services on the farm, combining their education and agriculture. The entrepreneurial spirit or interest of farms, mostly also small-scale farms to expand their income and diversity of their agricultural activities, and social responsibility or willingness to respond to the pressing social challenges such as depopulation and assistance for disadvantages vulnerable social groups. And last slide, I will conclude with a question. Here is a circle which is dedicated to the title of our conference. So, agriculture as an actor of social inclusion. Here is the circle which reflects different aspects of innovation and societal or social inclusion. And I would like to ask our colleagues from countries with long-term experiences which were presented today with social farming, where should we start? In Slovakia. So I think that this is for brainstorming, and I would like to thank you all for your attention, and in case of any questions, I would like to respond to them if I will know how.
Thank you, Professor Moravčíková, for very enriching and inspiring presentation on how to be sustainable and innovative. And I would like to just connect to her question. So please, I would like to open the question cycle. There is no question. I would like to have a question. Okay. From your point of view, what would be like the best way to proceed?
The best way how to start in Slovakia, and not only in Slovakia, in all post-communist or post-socialist countries, I will say that this is to bring, try to promote the political identification of this issue, and to support the raising awareness of people in our country. Because if you say here that social farming, nobody knows what does it mean, and without this awareness raising, it seems from also from maybe my point of view that it's not so important. But we cannot establish institutions and some financial schemes and so on without knowing that people are interested in doing it. So that's my answer to do. So political recognition and some political responsibility and raising public awareness are two main factors how to maybe promote and start to share the ideas, and also to enlarge the scope of activities within the field of social entrepreneurship and social farming as well.
Thank you very much, and I can see that there is a raised hand. Mr. Nelson, please.
Yes, as you ask people or the participants from countries where there is already something like social farming existing, I agree to your last statement, because I think it's quite important to really look at, let's say, seedlings of social farms you have in your country, and to understand them as the reality of what is social farming in your country. And I am always a little bit anxious if the whole process starts with defining, because I think instead of defining, you should understand social farming as a growing plant, and to understand that as the reality of social farming, what is existing, and to allow the development of that plant, and maybe that what can develop in your country that might be also something different than in the other countries. So the diversity is important to my understanding, and to really look at the people who become active in that way, to understand them as partners and to communicate with them, and also to start research in such a way to not to, let's say, put a frame for the development, but to understand that what is really developing as a reality. And that would be the starting point from my perspective.
Thank you very much. I fully agree with you.
Thank you very much one more time to Professor Moravčíková. I would like to only announce two issues. Our last speaker, Andrea Parham from the United States, due to the technical and personal reasons, she cannot join us. The second technical issue was related to the presentation before, it was a sudden change, and due to the teaching obligation of Dr. Knapik, and we already introduced Dr. Violeta Knapik, but let me introduce our last speaker one more time. We would like to very warmly welcome to our conference Dr. Violeta Knapik from the University of Agriculture in Krakow from Poland, and the topic of her presentation is care farms as a kind of social innovation in rural areas. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hello everybody. Wait a second, I'm showing my presentation. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, and we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I would like to present you the care farms as a kind of social innovation in rural areas. My presentation bases on the research project, and more about the project in the next part. The rationale of the project. The process of aging society will escalate in the next 10 years. It requires from both national and regional authorities to undertake more effective actions to support seniors. You can see at the chart the number of total population in Poland since 2015 to 2050. Generally, the total number of people is declining. Finally, in the period of 35 years, the total number of Poland will be decreased by 4.4 million people. Despite this trend, the total number of seniors will increase from about 7 million in 2013 up to 30 million people in 2050. In 2013, were about 2 million more seniors in the urban areas than in the rural areas. And in 2050, the proportion will be maintained. So I would say the bigger number of elderly requires to cater the specific needs of seniors, inclusive professional care in care institutions, in care homes. In Poland, the waiting time for a place in these care homes is very long and as well as very expensive. Therefore, car farming seems to be a very attractive for seniors and can be an alternative way partially to care homes. Because care homes are financed by government, and the care farming could be only partially financed by government. What is care farming? The care farms are known in Western Europe since over 20 years. And could be the additional source of income. This is worth to underline. Income for farmers and the possibility for seniors to spend time in the surrounding nature together with their peers. Our project, Care Farms in Rural Development in the Face of Demographic Challenges, is financed by National Center of Research and Development under the program Social and Economic Development of Poland in the conditions of globalizing markets. We are realizing the project since 2019 to the end of August 2022. The consortium consists of 4 partners: Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, University in Kraków, University of Agriculture in Kraków, which I represent, and the Agriculture Advisory Center in the branch office in Kraków. The main goal of our project is to develop a model of a care farm and to prepare a system for its implementation. This is very important goals, and also for us, this is the most important issue to create a model, not only, for example, a pilot farm, but the whole system for existing the farms. The project responds to the challenges such as equal access to social services for both residents of rural and urban areas, need of better organization of public services, also increasing of social capital and ensuring better coordination of public policies. In summary, the GOVIT project will develop and prepare for its implementation the model care services for seniors under the care funds. Also use the best practices occurring in Western Europe. And the assumption of the project, the first factor are mechanisms for building and strengthening social bonds in an aging population. This is the first factor. The second one is to improve access to social and health services. And the third factor is the third factor is connected with involving civil society in the implementation of public policies. And the last one, there are our research results in 4 issues, groups, namely the need for social services in rural areas, interest of farmers in setting up care farms, cooperation with social assistance, focusing on seniors and development of seniors assistance in the terms of complicated legal conditions, in the different interpretation of the law, and the need for a straight path to the creation of care farms. More you can see, you can find at our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Knapi, for your interesting presentation.
It was very short.
I think it's like late afternoon, but still very inspiring and encouraging, because I can see like the project is focusing on many aspects, and it might be a good way for Poland also like to develop such a based on the project such a policies. So thank you very much for enlightening presentation. And I would like to open the last cycle of the question in relation to the Dr. Knapi presentation. I think we are facing some technical issues.
Yes.
We got like many screens, so now we got like so many participants.
That's what
It's like working personal. We would like to ask you for closing the sharing the window of Dr. Knapi. It might be the problem in Microsoft Teams, like it's open too many times. Just close the share screen. And from my point of view, I can see a raised hand, and I hope I will remember the name. Mr. Thomas. Yes, because it takes time.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I'm just curious because in Germany we also at the moment there is a big let's say interest in opening farms for elderly people, and the discussion always is what happens if these people really need care, and if they let's say if they are living on a farm and they really need continuous care. And I wonder, Marjolein, as I know in the Netherlands there are maybe many more experiences and there is a longer tradition of working with elderly people. I would like to ask, of course, you as a presentator first, maybe, what you are thinking about it in Poland, but also maybe Marjolein can add maybe some experiences from the Netherlands.
Yes, we have some experience from Netherlands and also from Germany. The most important problem and barrier for the care farming in Poland is finance issue. Who would be responsible for the costs? Who will be finance the activities? This is the most important problem for our project. because care and all the things connected with the care, seniors care, is not to, for us, not too complicated, so not too complicated than the finance problem. I would say it's only one way to lose this problem. The care further could be or should be included to the social policy, and then should be the cost should be shared between government, national government, local government, and and only 10 or 15% will be connected with seniors, and then maybe it will be functional. Because the people, when we only say you could pay for services, let's say 20, 30 euros, it's this is too. This is not. Despite of the price, this is only the price is too higher for those people who have only 200 euros for this all needs.
Thomas, I can reply as well if you like. On the Dutch situation, how it's actually there are actually two kind of ways care for elderly is organized in social or in care farming, and the one form is that elderly get the activity, so they are coming to the farm and have a nice day, and they have activities on the farm, and in this way this is paid by municipalities from the Act on Social Support. And it's often also a kind of respite care if there's a partner in, if there's a partner, so the partner has a kind of relief from the care for the elderly, and often they are elderly with dementia. And then you have another form, and that's actually that farmers rebuild their farm environment, and that they made apartment buildings for elderly, where elderly can stay and have 24/7 care. And that can be in different forms actually. It can be in forms like also with the activity and people are just living there, but if the care is getting more severe, people can stay there and they can, they can stay there for a long time, even until they maybe die. And this kind of support is paid from the long-term healthcare budgets, and often this is also for elderly that cannot, because we have quite the healthcare system in the Netherlands it changed already quite a long time ago, but people need to live for a really long time at home. Maybe that's the same in your countries as well. Those 24/7 care facilities, you only can go if you're having severe problems, for instance, physical problems or mental ill problems like dementia. And there is actually also a third way. There are also elderly people in the Netherlands or senior citizens that think, well, what should I like to live in when I'm older? Because maybe I have a big house, I can't live there until I'm having some physical complaints. I'm going to try to make a good future for myself. But some people with a group start a kind of living community at a farm. There are not so many, of course, but there are examples that set up such a thing. So there are different forms of care farms. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully this is an answer to your question, Thomas.
I can see a raised hand. Miss Bakar-Zale, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I meant to make a comment and perhaps connect the different conversations we've had and questions we had. Who should lead? Who should pay? How to fund? I think we shouldn't underestimate the capacity of markets and and private sector to do things. But also, when we say that territories can pay, we had the issue, for example, in New Zealand, where rural development are less endowed even with the territorial funding, because the tax base is lower, depending on how municipalities are funded. If it's based on the people living in the area, then obviously there's an issue there to fund anything substantial. So, and as was said, care expenditure is not small. It's in our societies. It's covered often by social services, by the fundings we have given all through our lives. For example, for the elderly, there's the fiscal aspect is important, and I think we should also bring in the conversation the Treasury and the Ministries of Health, and so that the base is set clearly. And to me, the solution that the Dutch have found, which is to liberalize in a way the health system, so that users can pick and choose where they go for their for their health services, is perhaps an option to consider. But these are things that we should. It's not because agriculture funding has a big envelope today that tomorrow it will still have it, and that so when considering the way economies and the farming sector evolves, we should have in consideration all these aspects. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much for the comments.
Thank you for the comments, and I would like to leave the floor for very last question. If not, thank you, Dr. Knapik, for answering the question for the presentation and for joining us to the fact that you had working obligations. I would like to only say one technical thing before we do the conclusion remarks, which will do Mrs. Kranekova. And I would like to just inform you that after the conference, there will be distributed CRP questionnaire, Cooperative Research Program, and it will have the form of the Google form. Of course, there is today's conference, so tomorrow that will be after the conference will finish, distribute the formula and the questionnaire. And from my point of view, it was like great pleasure to spend with you the afternoon, and I really enjoyed and learned a lot about social agriculture, social care farming, and the topic which is such importance, like not saying only in Central Europe, but globally.
So that's what to say. I think I don't want to be pathetic, but even though this topic is really prosaic and practical, I would say that there is never enough inspiration, and I believe that this virtual air we are now sharing is filled with inspiration. Thank you for your ideas and views, and I'm sure they are inspirational not only for the Slovak social agriculture, but also for those who have already developed the system. I can speak for the Slovak actors of social agriculture that your ideas, I have to say that your ideas are valuable in many, many aspects, as cooperation between social farmers, holistic approach, bottom-up approach, which was also mentioned. We have heard about specific examples which only prove real effects of working with plants and animals on human health, human well-being, and other creation of other social and societal values. I have to say that all of you contributed in a specific way. Professor Moldry has spoken about bottom-up approach, which is, I would say, the guarantee of stability of social agriculture system. We are also pleased that he agreed to participate in our conference also tomorrow as one of panelists. We have to say that diversity of instruments, which was mentioned by Morvarit, even the discussion between Morvarit and Nauki speaking about tackling the potential development of the post-COVID situation and social agriculture effects on the situation were very inspiring. Applecast mentioning Applecast efforts in education, which were personally interesting for me. Thank you, Reese, Meyerlein, Thomas, Francesco, for your engagement in the fruitful and really interesting and natural debate. It's really visible that you know each other. You are really. It wasn't formal. It was visible. Violeta, thank you for your input in spite of your duties, working duties, as it was said by Jan already. Your inputs will be reported to the CRP OECD report, who is the CRP program is our primary sponsor. As I have to mention once more. Also, it will be published in conference proceedings and the special issue of the scientific journal European Countryside, published in the Mendel University in the Czech Republic. Hereby, we would like to encourage you to publish your full papers. If it is possible, there is a possibility to publish also for those who didn't present today, for the other participants. The deadline is 15 November 15th. I have to say that tomorrow we will continue and discuss only in Slovak language, as you know already. We decided to do so because the discussion will be really about Slovak issues, but also discussion with farmers, social workers, and a variety of actors. We will discuss in 3 panels. The first one is called Social Work and Social Services, the second one Agriculture and its Innovations in Agriculture, and the third one is dedicated to education, advisory and information and awareness about social agriculture. We will conclude both conference days so that our conclusions will be concluded. Our conclusions of today's this day will be concluded in the end of the conference tomorrow. Thank you all for once more for your valuable inputs. Thank you to my colleagues from Slovak University of Agriculture and Civic Association Druživa. I would like to express our thanks to moderators, to interpreters, You may agree that our thanks and compliments go to technicians, Roman, Michal and Peter. And I just say that hopefully we will stay in connection and meet each other personally when this virtual story will end. Thank you.